So this is being recorded, yay for recording. So you're going to get the recording and the slides tomorrow. Feel free to, I am so sorry. So you can choose turn off your video if you want to. Feel free to turn on your video so we can see your faces. So hello to all our friends. Feel free to turn on your video. And during the live session, if you have a question, if you could put a Q in front of your question, that'll, I mean, we're pretty smart, so we'll catch on. But if you could put a Q in front of your questions, and please try to remain muted. I think everybody will be automatically muted, but try to mute during the sessions. You feel free to raise your hand option to speak. And if your name is Winnie the Pooh, if you can change it to your real name, we would love that as well. So after the live session, this is very important because I think just a few of you have signed up for the April 2nd session. So there's a part 2 to this. So we're going to be putting the link in throughout the hour for the April 2nd session. So feel free to sign up for that. And we'll be taking orders for AI jobs to be done for you. So Kim's going to tell you more about that. I'm going to move out of the way and turn it over to our speaker, Kim Snyder. Just a little bit about Kim on the next slide. You're going to learn Kim personality is so funny. So get ready to laugh a little bit. Kim, over to you.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Aretha, and thank you all for being here this afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you're from. It's great to have a lot of people from different parts of the country today. And yes, you heard that right from Aretha. So stay on that idea that in the next session we will get some work done for you. Okay, so that is that's actually a promise. So today we're going to give you a general introduction to generative AI. And in a moment, we're going to find out how many of you are new to AI, how many of you are kind of pros and gurus, etc., and somewhere in between. But we find it helpful to give people a sense of kind of the context of AI, and that helps explain some of like why it's moving so fast and why we can continue to expect it to continue to move fast. Okay, I'm going to talk about responsible AI, right? And also we're going to introduce you to Copilot. This series is sponsored by Microsoft. Microsoft Copilot is an AI tool that is available to many of you. It's actually available to everyone technically. We're going to show you how to use it. So especially if you're new to this or if you haven't used it yet, no fears. We're going to walk you through it. And then I'm going to talk about some just general AI use cases, both to get you start thinking about how you can use this for your own work and getting things done for yourself, but also so that you can think of things to give us to do for the next session on April 2nd. All right. It's not every webinar that will say that, like come and spend some time and I'll get some work done for you. But this next one will be one of those. Okay, the jargon buster. Another thing you can drop into the chat. This is tech, though I will more on that thought. But if I happen to lapse into jargon, please hashtag jargon me in the chat. And I will stop and explain myself. I try to avoid speaking in acronyms, but every once in a while it can happen with these systems. And I see someone's having some problems with an echo. We have a great tech team that can help you with that, or help you try to sort it out. But anyway, if I happen to lapse into jargon, just give a holler, and oops, and I will stop with that. So Kevin, this is one of the polls. Just interested in seeing who's here today. So what's your current relationship with AI? And are you able to show the poll? Do I have to stop sharing my screen?
It should be popping up right now.
Beautiful. Okay, beginner, so clueless, just starting to learn about AI, exploring, okay, curious, haven't tried it, experimenting, Okay, so some people used it occasionally. Okay, incorporating it regularly into your work and on personal projects. Okay, and we have some advocates in here. Okay, that's very exciting. And we will save some time for Q&A for this at the end, for sure. But, by all means, feel free to ask a question, or I tend to like some interaction when I'm teaching. So anyway, so I might call on you with some questions. So it looks like there are folks who are kind of all in different places with AI. So hopefully this will give you some nice context for it. Okay, this is the first question. I've been teaching tech in nonprofits for like 30 years, which makes me older than I look. Maybe. Um, but anyway, and this is actually something that often when I present new tech concepts to people, people say like, "Oh man, a new tech thing? Like, no, I don't have time for this. We're too busy. I've got to like schlep the rocks." Right? And so you see this um square wheel paradox, we call it. So why bother to spend that time? Because, oh, wow, okay, that makes it way better. And then what do you often hear? We should have done this a long time ago. Okay, so this is something that has over and over again in my work with nonprofits and technology. This comes up. We're going to change this equation a little bit for AI and learning these skills. Okay, so we can still get I'm too busy to learn like another thing. Like what more do I need to do? This isn't, and then there's also the question, and I do get this I do have people ask me, so what? So if I let AI help me, does that mean it's just going to take my job? Does that mean I'm not going to have a job? Um, and here's the deal. AI can change our jobs. Yes, AI will change how we do our work. It's like how the web changed how we do our work, right? But you'll see like instead in this model, instead the AI is like moving the rocks along. Now you can focus on building the house, right? So now that the AI is moving the rocks, we have time to build our house. So that's kind of how I've experienced AI and how a lot of the organizations that I work with have experienced it, right? It's not here to take people's jobs away. It is here to kind of take care of some of the tasks that are maybe more onerous so that then you can focus on your job and do stuff that requires more human thought, creativity, and things like that. So, all right. So I'm going to look at why is it moving so quickly suddenly, right? And I want to talk about exponential growth. So say we're all living by a lake and on day 0, the lake is clear, there's no lily pads anywhere. Day 1, though, a lily pad appears on the lake. Day 2, that doubles, so I have 2 lily pads. Day 3, that doubles again, I have 4. Day 4, it doubles again, I have 8. Okay, and then by the time I get to day 30, the lake is completely full of lily pads. I can't even see the water through the lily pads. So that's exponential growth. So it's doubling every day. Okay. So a little bit of math. On what day is the lake half full? You can drop it in the chat if you want. Where's the chat? Chat. Okay. Okay. So Gloria. Okay, good maths, right? So if it's doubling every day, what day is it half full? 29, because on day 30 it's full. Okay, a little bit more tricky. What about more than 1% full? What do you think? This is harder. Anyone hazard a guess to this? Anyone? Okay, 10. That's good. I mean, it would seem that way, right? This is the scary part. 24. So that is to say, on the 24th day, and when you think day 30, it's going to be so full I can't see anything. On day 24, if you asked me, hey, Kim, you got a lily pad problem on that lake? I'd look out my window and I'd say, no, I don't really see any lily pads on the lake. What are you talking about? And 6 days later, I would no longer be able to see the water. Now, someone had their hand raised. Is there anything? Okay. Remember, jargon buster, if I'm not making, or just, Kim, you're not making sense. We'll always slow down. All right. So in terms of AI, and this is also, let me know what you think. Where do you think we are? This is not a hard science answer or a hard mathematical, but where would you guess that we are today? Oh, good, Bianca, glad you get, okay, day 5 minus day 1, okay. Day 4, okay. I mean, it feels like it's early days, but because it's just really bounded onto the scene, I would guess that we're closer to day 25, like Joanne here said, or day 26, or like that. Okay, so let me see if I can use this laser thing without messing up my share. So, oops. So this is linear growth, right? That's what we're all used to as human beings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is like the lily pad, the exponential growth, right? It kind of like plods along for a while, and then all of a sudden, boom, it goes up an incredible trajectory, right? That's because it's exponential. That's how you get to like half full, day 29, things like that, right? So that is the kind of growth that we see with AI. Whoops, right? So let me just undo the pen. Oops, sorry. Actually, oh, sorry about that. Yikes. Okay. All right. So, all right, so we have a similar kind of line here, actually multiple lines. This is the development of the kinds of capabilities that led to the type of AI we have today, right? So back in 1989, way back at the left side of this, the first handwriting recognition systems came into being. And that was for the post office reading zip codes. Makes a lot of sense. And that was like incredibly advanced at the time. But all of a sudden, countries getting more people, they got to like sort the mail faster. So handwriting recognition was really the first that we started seeing this. And then that continued to improve over the years. Speech recognition also started, but it took a much longer time to get going. Image recognition, and I hazard to say that this is where things really turned around, is when image recognition started becoming possible. And it partly because of the kinds of computers and the amount of data that became available here, right? You just didn't have the processing power that could do like a massive amount of speech recognition, like even if you had the know-how, right? So the machines kind of had to catch up. But we have image recognition, and then we start going into 2015, 16, 17. We're starting to get reading comprehension. The line starts going up like that linear, that straight up and down, straight up and down, like trajectory of exponential growth and language understanding, right? This line, the 0 point line here, is human performance. Now, I say human performance without the emotions or the human being behind it. It's really like pure skills. But it's some weird noise on the thing here. But anyway, so this line, and so these tools are continuing to get better and better, right? This is keep going up. So we can expect to see more and more advances. So the beginnings of neural networks, Janelle said, yeah, they did start quite a long time ago, but it took a while. Another way to look at these kinds of improvements is right here with the frog. And now you'll understand whether you'll see a lot of frogs in this presentation. I do like kind of a theme here. But all right, March 2022. So this is 4 years down here in the still pictures. From March 2022, when you put frog into the, image generation, you got this thing. And that does not look like a frog, really. April starting a little bit better. July, little froggy like November. Something happened in here, right? Real advances between July and November where it really looks like a frog, right? And then we go here in March 2024, I would say actually that the AI frog looks more real than the real frog, which is right next to it. And now in February, you can create the video frog. Okay. So this is just a different way to look at exponential growth and advancement in terms of the development of these AI capabilities. So let's talk about what is generative AI? What's going on under the hood here? Um, there are some fundamental components of generative AI. I'm going to try to not mess up my, I'm going to change colors here. All right, so basically the person puts information in, goes into a machine learning system. This machine learning system has consumed a lot of data. And I mean, when I say a lot, I mean a lot of data, okay? And consuming more. And so this machine learning system that has consumed all this data then takes that input, processes it, and then provides it back out as output. And then the person at the other end is like, yeah, that's right. Or no, that didn't work. Here, change it this way. Now, bear in mind that this is also additional data for the system. Okay, this is data, as is whatever someone says back to the system, because it is going back into the system, right? So the data is coming from both ways. So now you can think with all these millions of people using AI systems, it's getting fed a lot of data as well. So these are the fundamental components of it, right? But what's happening? Now, Tanmay Bakshi is someone that I had the pleasure of hearing at a keynote address. And he was like 19 years old at the time of his address. And when I told him that I would be, I was preparing actually for the first TechSoup class I did on AI. And we were telling him that we're getting ready to teach it to a group of nonprofits. And he was so happy that nonprofits were going to be like kind of learning about these systems. And that was in 2023. So that was like earlier on. Oops, God, very jumpy. And so this is how he describes what's happening under the hood.
Say if you ask ChatGPT, what's AI going to do in the future, right? The way that ChatGPT generates a response for you is actually really interesting. It's effectively just entirely statistical language modeling. Given a sentence or given some sort of prefix, GPT's entire goal, its entire objective, is simply to take those words and predict of all the tokens in its known vocabulary, the probability of any one of those tokens being the actual genuine next token in the sequence. That's all that GPT is doing. What you're seeing right now is a genuine visualization of the way that GPT, specifically GPT-2, would generate a response. It is simply taking words and predicting the probabilities of which word will come next.
All right. So it's not thinking in there.
Say if
it's doing math. It's probabilistic statistics, right? But you all probably would not have signed up for that course here. if it was Introduction to Probabilistic Statistical Outcomes, which is actually what AI is, right? It's probabilistic statistics. All right, so let's look at some of these systems. And here's a nice acronym that you'll see a lot with this. LLM, that's a large language model. And that's the term that tends to get used with these systems. Okay, so we've got a bunch of free systems on the left here. We got ChatGPT, which you can use for free, Claude, Gemini, which comes with Google, and Microsoft Copilot Web Chat. And we'll be talking about the different types of Copilot soon. I'll be kind of going through the different flavors that Copilot comes in, but there is a free version that's available on the web, right? Don't have to have anything. Okay, then we have free with subscription, and Microsoft Copilot Chat is that tool. So if you have a Microsoft license, Microsoft Copilot Chat is something that you can then use for free with that license. Then there are paid, which are more kind of per user per month. This is Microsoft Copilot Pro, which is more of an add-on. And we'll be talking about that and showing you some more about that in the April 2nd session when we talk about, that's where you start to see Copilot and Excel or Copilot and PowerPoint working on this together. And that's a great question, Melissa. Just saw it right there. I will get to that, save that one, about privacy. But I will answer some of it now. You do want to, if you have a BAA, and I would talk to your Microsoft person about this, but when you're using it in your environment, okay, and that's, if you're using it, you have an office, a work license or a work subscription, and you use it, you have the same, you have the same protections that you would have any of your documents that are also in SharePoint. And what BAA is a business associates agreement. And so if you work in the area of medicine and you're working with personal health information, you have to have signed agreements with any vendors that hold your data. So that's what a BAA is. That's a privacy thing for people who are working with medical types of data. But your license, and I would double check that specific question, but basically in your paid work environment, you have the same protections that a document would have in that environment. All right. So generative AI, it's ideal for brainstorming, right? Blank page syndrome, it's great. Gloria is using it. It's awesome. Short questions can be a starting point. Experiment, taking prompt writing in any direction. Next session, we are going to be looking more about prompt writing and thinking about different ways to approach prompts. And Microsoft has some tools for thinking about prompt writing. But when you think about prompting, that's really how you're talking to the AI. And some people, when I say, is it like a technology task? I actually beg to differ, and I would say it's less a technology task and it's more one of asking questions. So the task is like, can you talk to this and get the answers that you want from this? As with anything, the more details, the more specifics you provide. Think of it as an intern in your office who's new. The more context I give this intern, the better response they'll give me. So if you can give specific details and things like that, you will likely get an answer that's closer to what you're looking for. But someone earlier asked about fuzzy logic, and that, in other words, it's probabilistic. It is by its nature creative. And we're going to talk more about that around when we think about some of the risks, but it is creative, generative. It's making stuff. So, that I'm going to save a thought that is more appropriate for the prompt writing class. But if you find you are working with AI and you start to go down a weird track, like fuzzy logic track, then you might want to start back again at the beginning. I found that easier sometimes. Like if I start off with a prompt that's okay, and then it kind of veers off a course, then I will come back to the beginning, make some adjustments with my prompt and start again because of the nature of the probabilistic statistics. So it's guessing the next word, right? If it gets kind of way down fuzzy logic, someone had asked a question about there being fuzzy logic to AI. So in other words, that it's not like specific, it's probabilistic. It's guessing. So I think that's what they meant. So anyway, we're going to talk a lot more about prompting in the next session, but what's happening here? All right. But the more experiment is the best thing you can do. It's like learning how to talk to a new coworker or a new intern, and you're giving instructions. All right, so let's talk about responsible AI. All right, I think, and one of the reasons I am so grateful to be able to teach to a group of nonprofit staff people is that AI really needs responsible, human-centered people thinking and learning about it. Personally, I feel like that's a mission for me because I feel like the more people that we have from nonprofits who come from a more human-centered view, the more they feel like let's pull up a seat at the table and let's have a conversation. Let's ask questions about some of these tools. If I'm talking to a vendor that has an AI baked into its tools, let me ask some questions about privacy, about people, about bias, and things like that. So it is still nation. I know it seems like it's day 26 and maybe it's been here forever. No, it's still a nation in terms of its adoption and its use in our everyday lives. And the more nonprofits know about it, the more they can be shaping it. We can drive more ethical adoption, more ethical development, and I think that really can make a huge difference. I don't know how many people um, approach this AI course our session today, wondering like, well, I don't know if this stuff is worth the risk. This might be a little scary. I have some real concerns. I have real concerns about like what this is going to do to the world, etc. Okay, that's something I hear from people all the time, right? And so this is a model that I use a lot. Okay, circles of control, and I also apply it to AI. Okay. So there are things I am concerned about, right? General state of the world. Oh, it got a little, okay. Um, so there are things that I'm concerned about. There's a lot of things I'm concerned about today in the world, okay? And when we think about AI, one of those things is, oh my God, the rapid development of AI. It has baked in bias. It does, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. What happens to people's jobs who are going to change? And people can really easily take advantage of AI and do really bad things with it, right? There are existential risks. There are also climate risks that people talk about. Um, so, but, and so those are all things that I would say I have concern about, and people have concern about it. And that is absolutely, not surprising at all. However, where can I influence? Like when I think about all the things in the world today that I'm concerned about, which are many, what can I, what things can I impact? Like, how could I influence something? So the world of influence is really where nonprofits could take a real position is advocating as a group. There's actually more nonprofit groups that are advocating for ethical AI development. Okay, there's nonprofit concerns. There's also policies. There's also talking to state legislators and things like that about a lot is happening at the state level right now around policies and AI and how people use our data and things like that. So we can also collaborate with others to promote responsible AI. We ourselves can advocate for in our communities for responsible AI, and we can also engage in research. And yeah, someone mentioned the atrophy of human capabilities. That's something that people worry about. I will talk about keeping a human in the loop, so they, put that. We will return to that. Um, the circle of control. Okay, and these are the things that I have the most control over personally. Um, and this is where I can educate myself. So all of you here are in your circle of control, and you are in here learning this afternoon, learning about Copilot and generative AI. You can build your skills, also organizationally. So many, if not all of you, work or are connected to nonprofits. So you can advocate for kind of skill building in the nonprofit. And let's think about how we're going to integrate this thoughtfully in the nonprofit. How can we use this in a way that aligns with our mission? Things like that. Those are all things that we can directly control. And I find that the more I can locate, and especially today in the world, the more I can locate in my circle of control and then maybe push out to influence, the better I will feel, and probably the more effective I'll be as well. So that's just one way of thinking about AI and some of the things that we're very concerned about. There are some very real concerns. Um, all right, so let's talk about some of the things that can happen. Okay. So the first of these is that, I mean, many of us must have heard on the, like back in a couple of years ago when this first came out, an attorney had used ChatGPT in one of his cases, and it had given him excellent precedent cases, but you know what? Those precedent cases didn't exist, right? They sounded perfect. Remember, it's creative. It's not exacting. It's not necessarily an encyclopedia, right? What I was surprised to learn that AI is that lawyers are still doing this, which was kind of surprising to me because that case back in 2023 was like a big deal, and a lot of people were like, "Oh my God!" But so it's called hallucinations or confabulations is another word, or just mispredictions, right? In this probabilistic statistical model, it gets the wrong word. Sometimes it can sound great, but actually be wrong. Um, right? So mitigating the confabulation risk, right? And it's a concern for every nonprofit, every business, even using it personally, right? And students, right? They're going to have AI write their whole research papers. Well, here's a problem. Some of that could be completely wrong. Um, so my general recommendation is don't rely on it to answer questions that you cannot then verify. Okay. One thing that's nice about Copilot and some more of the other tools that are around today is that they will give you sources. Okay. That's how you can then go and verify. Um, Review what comes out of it. And I also caution people, don't ask it to quote anybody, because if it'll make up a quote that's wonderful, that's the exact quote you're looking for, that the person never said, right? So so it is creative, it is generative, it is, it's a hard thing conceptually. It's guessing, it's probabilistic, right? So review what comes out of it and make a commitment to say, I'm going to review everything. Oops, gosh. Right. This is also known as keeping a human in the loop. So someone asked about creativity. What I like about it is that I can have it write that first draft that can sometimes take me way too long a time to do. And then I can spend the time creatively making it closer to what I want to say, okay, to what I'm trying to actually say. I assume I am going to be doing a lot of editing of anything that comes out of generative AI. And that's what's known as keeping a human in the loop, right? And sometimes even with the prompt, I can say, and this is what this is illustrating, I can say, no, actually make it more like this. This is more what I was looking for. But even when it's gotten close, I will then look at it, read it, review it, and edit it. And I recommend people do that with anything that comes out. And that's why you want to ask it questions that you can verify, or that you can ask someone to verify, or you can verify through various sources. But you want to keep a human in the loop. That's very important. Okay. Another, and this is where, risk or area of risk with AI, is there is built-in bias. All right. They were trained on the world's data. The world's data is biased. Okay. When I'm listening to an audio book right now that talks about the facial recognition technology, and it's a genesis, and that is loaded with bias. And we're going to hear someone talk about that in a moment. But even early days, okay, and this is, I think, back in 2010 or early days, Amazon and Microsoft, right, could not identify Black women's faces, right? Oprah Winfrey appeared to be male. Michelle Obama, right, young man in a shirt, right? So it could not recognize Black faces. Now, this was brought up to these groups. They were shown what was going on, and they did make changes. They did not have enough people of color in their training. So again, know that these tools can generate biased looking content as well, or interpret something in a biased way. All that big mound of data they've consumed, some of that data does come with bias. All right, so here we're going to look at the pale male data problem.
Researchers like Joy Blomweeny have repeatedly found that certain groups tend to get excluded from the data that AI is trained on, putting them at a serious disadvantage.
With self-driving cars, when they tested pedestrian tracking, it was less accurate on darker-skinned individuals than lighter-skinned individuals.
Joy believes this bias is because of the lack of diversity in the data used in teaching AI to make distinctions.
As I started looking at the data sets, I learned that for some of the largest data sets that have been very consequential for the field, they were majority men and majority lighter-skinned individuals or white individuals. So I call this pale male data.
Okay, pale male data is an objectively hilarious term, and it also sounds like what an AI program would say if you asked it to describe this show. But biased inputs leading to biased outputs is a big issue across the board here.
Okay, so Dr. Joy Buolamwini was the person who brought this bias to the attention of Microsoft, Amazon,
like Joy Blomweeny,
and these companies. And we can provide you to these links. She is an amazing person. This is a podcast episode, and she's just, when I listened to her audiobook, Unmasking AI, right? And it's a story that she went through at MIT, as she was an MIT researcher, and her own face as a Black woman was not recognized when she was doing experiments in like 2008, I think, with facial recognition technology. Okay, and so she was really one of the first out there in this field. And she, and I was curious when I was listening to her book, does she, discourage AI? Does she feel hopeless about it because there's so much bias and there's in like embedded in the world? And she feels more hopeful that as more people use it, it'll change and that it can continue to get better. So I do recommend paying attention to Dr. Joy Buolamwini, and also at the Algorithmic Justice League, which was the logo we saw in at the end of the John Oliver thing, which is a nonprofit she founded on to deal with bias and algorithms, and how bias still comes through in AI applications, especially commercial applications. Okay, privacy is another big issue. So looked earlier at this image of how when a prompt goes into a machine learning system or an LLM and that's pulling data out, the processing is all kind of going through, your prompt goes in, the output comes out. The data that goes in, okay, anything that goes past the red line at the very right, if the system is not protected, does not protect privacy, is going out into, becoming training data for the data system. That can also constitute a privacy breach, right? So, it's important if you're using like a free system that you've not paid for and you're not sure what happens to my data here, you need to look. Some of them you can turn on a privacy setting, right? In one of the free versions that comes with your personal subscription with Microsoft Copilot, you can, but you need to turn it on. If you're just using it free off the web, then the data you put in becomes training data. So you want to make sure not to put personal information, certainly nothing sensitive like personal health information, and also anything like that's proprietary that you wouldn't want to have out there. Okay, so know that it ends at the prompt, your privacy. Right? But the safety comes when you use it in one of your subscription packages, particularly in anything that you would have for work, right? Any of the Microsoft 365 subscriptions, the same safety that you have with your SharePoint, it translates over, right? It's in your environment. All right. So remembering that AI is humans plus AI. It's not just AI. Think of it as an assistant, right? Not a colleague, not a coworker. And it's about giving the AI instructions, and your prompting is what provides it with the context, what it needs to do. Again, we will spend much more time on prompting, kind of walking through different prompting methods next time. But it's so important to validate what comes out of it, validate it and improve it. Think of it as a nice first draft that maybe like an intern who knows a lot but is new to your organization created. You would certainly do a lot of editing and review on that. All right. So, Kevin, this is the next poll. It's actually a double poll. So curious as to whether you or anyone at your place of work is using AI for any work-related tasks. So this is a two-part question.
Pulling it up right now.
All righty. All right. So is anyone? Okay. Righty. So we got a lot of yeses here. There's still some nos. Not surprising. Not sure. You might not be using it, but maybe someone else is. But I'd say we got a fair number of people using it from these poll results. And thank you everyone for answering. All right, so we've got a pretty good amount of use here. All right. Now, part two of this question is, and Kevin, you can pull that one up. It's a little more dicey. All right. Has your organization provided you with training or guidance such as an AI policy? Okay, well, actually, we got more yeses than I used to get. That's an improvement. But you can see we have a similar kind of rate, like number of no's here, that we did is the yeses to are you using it? And that is not at all surprising. And Misty, while people are answering this, I will say in a paid ChatGPT account, you can turn on privacy, but you have to go do that in your settings. Alrighty, so we've got, actually, it's great to see that there's 21% of people who responded. There do have a policy or guidance in place. That's great to hear. And sometimes it's a set of guidelines. Hey, I'll take anything. I feel like not giving a policy is like giving someone a car without any driver's ed or whatever, right? And some people are working on it. Okay, so this is interesting. This is a great study from TechSoup and the TAP network, right? Looking at how nonprofits are using AI, right? And here we see a similar kind of numerical breakdown where, let's see if I can determine to make this work. 85% of people have a high interest in these tools, like generative AI, predictive analysis. However, 80% of them have no AI acceptable use policy. So it's funny, it kind of mirrors, it's a little bit more extreme than what we've found in ours. So, right, we do have, and I think someone can drop in the link or we'll have all these links for you. So TechSoup and Microsoft do have an ebook for an AI usage policy, and it has a policy template in it that provides you with guidelines, and it's basically you get a starting point for a policy, which then becomes a discussion that you have in your organization with other stakeholders about how do we want to use AI? Which tools do we want to say are okay for us to use? Do we require review, right? Is there certain data that you can or cannot use when using AI? So yeah, we do have a link. I can find it. Let me see. Let me put that in. Oops. Here's a link for that. And this is a great tool. And if you're, oh, okay, thank you, Matika. Here's again. So if you end up, back at your organization, you think, wow, we don't have a policy and we probably should. This is a great place to start and bring this to some of your stakeholders, bring it to leadership. And, think about, because it's good to have the conversation. Because here's the thing, people know about AI. There were Super Bowl ads. You'll go on the Super Bowl, there were ads for AI. In fact, there's a lot of ads for AI. So it's not like people don't know and people aren't using it. So, and people will want to, be using it because it's a huge time saver, right? So know that it's in use is what I'd say. All right, so getting started with Copilot. All righty. Next time you're going to see more of this live. And yes, you can use AI to start your policy, Michael. It's valid, but you have to review it. All right. So if you've not tried any of this generative AI, predictive, probabilistic statistical stuff, and you're thinking, well, maybe I'll give it a try, you can go to the web, copilot.microsoft.com, and give it a try. You can prompt right into the chat box. You can ask it questions. You could ask it to help you write an outline for something, or write an invitation, or write a social media post. Don't give it any personal or sensitive information, because that that information is going to go back into the training data in this case, right? This is like you got no account, you've not logged into anything. You see it says sign in over here. I'm not signed into anything. I am just on the web and haven't, oops, yikes. All right, I'm too spastic with this thing. All right, so the next level, okay, let's say, and there's a lot of you out there, so you could have different kinds of accounts. Let's say you have a personal Microsoft account. Then you could be logged in to your personal. So this is me. I actually have both. I have a work account, Kim at Roundtable Technology, and I also have my personal email because I use it at home before I was at Roundtable, right? So I logged into my personal account. It's not a business account. I can go to copilot.microsoft.com. I do need to check my privacy settings and make sure that what I put in does not go into training data, but I then can make that adjustment. And by default, it is likely going into training data unless that gets changed. In my work account, however, now this is important to bring out the little pen that I keep messing up with. See this guy, this little green shield over here? This means that the data is protected. Now, in this case, we're logged into a work account. Okay, this was my colleague Joshua. He was logged in. He goes to copilot.microsoft.com while he's logged in. And this is what the page looks like, right? And again, you can also, make similar types of requests. You can add attachments. You can add an image. You could ask it to create an image. All right. You can also ask it to do an image in any of these other ones. But but the difference here is that by default, this is privacy on, no training data. It's like another document in your SharePoint universe. Okay. Yeah, so the data remains in your work enterprise account. Okay. So in my case, I actually have the Microsoft 365. Okay, so that's where it's the most integrated into different apps. So it has access to my internal SharePoint, my company's SharePoint. So that's also something, and we'll talk about that more next time, but that's something where you want to be mindful of your own SharePoint governance. So these are, but again, I'm logged in. I go to copilot.microsoft.com, and this is where it takes me. Okay. So, and I'm looking for the little shield. Access does need to be, so whether it's in whichever work version you have, it does need to be enabled at the organizational level. So by your IT admin or by whoever controls that account needs to turn it on in order for people to see it, right? And for some organizations, and this is smart, I think, though some people say, well, that's a big bummer, but they're waiting to turn it on until they have a policy, right? So that can make sense, and that can also serve as a motivator to work on your policy. The thing about your AI policy is use the template, create a good enough policy, because I guarantee you, with the speed of how AI is changing, you're going to be revisiting that policy probably at more than every 6 months, or at least every 6 months. So know that that policy is one that is likely going to change. So get it as close to, good, name the tools, etc. Follow what it says in that ebook and in that template, and get a draft out there and share it with people and provide them with some basic training. Like you could send them folks to a tech soup course, for example. So, all right, so access does need to be enabled at your organization for any of these, for Microsoft Copilot or the 365 version where it's more embedded in your applications. All right. Ooh, so this is a big chart with a lot of information. So this, and you're going to get a copy of this. We have it in several formats, but basically these are all the different levels of Microsoft licensing and how you can, use and access Copilot. So these over here on the farthest right are more the individual and personal levels. And on the left are the ones where you'll see organizational levels, right? Microsoft Copilot Studio is where you're starting to use it more for things like agents and plugins and using it to create things that can automate more processes, right? So it's getting very embedded into the whole Microsoft environment, which makes sense. But so you can automate certain processes using the AI with this kind of studio license. Okay, so I'd say that's more advanced. But the Copilot chat or the Microsoft 365 Copilot are both levels of access. And I think there is I would imagine this is the nonprofit discount, $306 per user per year and this is where you have it embedded in your different Microsoft tools. Right, and so you'll see you get the data protection, the same data protection you get in your SharePoint. It does access the web, so you can get information that's current when you put in a chat request. And yeah, oops. And so this is the same chart, but just in another format. And the pricing, I think, is a little less for nonprofits, but this is a similar information. There's some things that are metered, that is with the agents, right? So this is more stuff like that you'd use Studio for. These are things it's based on usage more. All right. But as I said, that's a pretty advanced level use case. Let me see. All right. So let's talk about, all right. So first I'm going to jump to the end of this and say, next session, we're going to be creating things for you. Okay. Because the best way I have found for people to learn how to use this is to see it in action. All right. And we're even going to create, and I don't know if we can share these now, but it's probably not a bad time to let people have the form is also the registration for next session, for the April 2nd session. But you can make requests. I will be back in whatever 2 weeks or yeah, 2 weeks. I will be back in 2 weeks, and if you give me requests, I might do some of your work for you in the meanwhile. So here's an example of the types of things you can do. And this is, especially if you're new to this. So here are just, some things you can just try out. I often will use it to improve content that I've created, right? So, spice this up a little bit, make this more appealing for this audience, right? And AI is really wonderful at that. I've used it also for difficult communications, like where I've had to ask about a contract or something, and how do I word this so that it's firm but still polite? And it's excellent for that type of thing, for work or for personal stuff. All right, another example of something it can do, it does that I use it for all the time is summarizing reports. Okay, so I can upload a long report. I think this UN agenda is probably about 60 pages, and in a matter of seconds, I can have what is in that report and a breakdown. And I can also further ask it questions of the report, right? Does it talk about this and this? And it can, and I find that when you give it content, you could also say, what page did you find that on? So that then you can go and verify it. So I use it a lot to
Yes.
review
All those.
reports.
Yeah.
Oops. To review
There's
reports.
an online giving page. And he puts
Oops. And also I will use it for also on the web. So if something's not necessarily a PDF that you can upload, you can also give it a link to something on the web and ask, can you please summarize this for me? I use that a lot. All right, another use case, I can say, in this case, this was a PDF. I said, here's like the global goals. This is all from the UN stuff, right? Here's the global goals lesson toolkit. Create an agenda. I need to plan a 1-hour workshop on this. So it can, and again, this is like blank page syndrome. Remember, it's not going to be perfect. This assumes I'm going to review it and say, okay, great. That's a nice first draft for me to work with and then really get creative on, right? So it is great at helping with planning agendas, discussion questions. Come up with the types of discussion questions that I might get asked at this event. Right? Again, you can also, and this is for anyone who happens to be in communications or marketing or end up doing a lot of that. If you've ever wanted personas, like okay, I want to do some very audience specific content. So I need to come up with some personas for this. You can use generative AI, not just to come up with the personas. So here's this website or report. Create like, you know, 5 personas for me of people that would be interested in this. And you can even say, I live in New Rochelle. So I could say, I live in, New Rochelle, a suburb outside of New York City. Give me like 5 personas who might be interested in being part of an event that is based on, these global goals. And then I feed it that content, and then it comes out with these personas, which then I can say, all right, great. So now I have my personas generate specific content formats, right? In this case, I'm asking for email and LinkedIn posts, right? Again, it's not something I'm going to automate sending out because I'm going to review it first. But especially for people who have to generate social media content, it is really helpful for that. So these are just a few, small use cases. If any of these tasks here are weighing you down, you got an RFP to write that you don't feel like writing, you got any challenging letters or emails, you have social media, a campaign you got to do, you need some personas, you want to give me a report, we can also do illustrations. If you have publicly available data, remember, don't give me personal data. We can put it in Excel next week. And using Microsoft 365 Copilot, we can take a look at that. We can also create photos. So I encourage you to join us again next time and to bring us your work, bring us things that you need us to do. I will be here with another colleague, and if you give them to us in the meantime, like, after this class, uh, I'd be happy to have it ready for you. And then we can look at how, how we did that, the types of prompts we used, etc. And often we'll experiment and try different kinds of prompts so you can see the different types of answers that it provided. So I think that is it.
So I actually have the form, Kim. Uh, uh, was it still something that we wanted to try and share during this session or
Yeah,
afterwards?
Yeah, Matika, I defer to you, but yeah.
Yeah, I already shared it in chat.
Yeah,
Oh, you
okay.
So
did?
let's
Okay.
put it back again.
Yeah, actually, if we can do something on the fly, I actually wanted to share the form directly through its
Okay.
direct Teams messaging. So let's see what happens.
Okay. Can it listen to a meeting and generate meeting minutes? Okay, this is where you had some wonderful, that's good, Kevin. That seems to have worked. I'm going to stop sharing and come to the screen now. We've had I'm no longer sharing, right? Yeah. So we've had some really great questions. Can it listen to a meeting and generate meeting minutes? Here's the thing. I think, and I might have to get back to you with the definitive answer, but when you have the Microsoft Copilot, and I don't know if any of our Microsoft aficionados are here that can answer this. Microsoft does come with a tool that you can use in your teams that will do meeting summaries and notes for you. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Actually,
Michael, actually, I was just beat me to it. So there's two options for that. Um, Copilot Pro, and then there's an add-on subscription called Teams Premium
yeah, that's right.
For meeting recaps, for transcription and meeting recaps.
And I will say that's something I use all the time. It takes much better notes than me and lets me be present for meetings in a way that I'm not if I'm typing notes. Are the note takers private? Yes, I believe in your Microsoft Copilot, like in your Microsoft Enterprise. So when you're logged into work and you're in, Teams for work, uh, does TechSoup, I cannot answer that question. Does TechSoup, does it summarize a YouTube video if there's a transcript? Yes, you can copy and paste the video transcript into Copilot, or you can copy and paste it into a Word doc that then you can link to in Copilot or upload. Let me see. Let me see, any other questions? There were a lot of questions. Let me see. Anyone want to raise their hand for questions? I'm trying to.
You can also come off microphone if you guys are comfortable with that too, if there's not a lot of questions.
Okay, Amanda has a
Off
question.
mute.
How is this better than ChatGPT 4 or something like that?
It's a different tool. It's not necessarily, it's not a better thing. It is a different tool. It comes with your Microsoft subscription. So it's free in your subscription. It's just one of the tools that's out there. So for many organizations that are getting started, right, that have Microsoft subscriptions, this is a great place to start because at least that people, whatever they put in their prompts, isn't going out into training data. So it's a great place to start.
So forgive my ignorance, but we have Microsoft 365. So it's free within our subscription, because I was noticing that there was a cost per user in the chat here.
It's free with your subscription. The thing that costs more is the Copilot tool that works embedded in Excel, PowerPoint, and has, access to your data that you can ask
Oh,
it questions
gotcha.
about it. So, but the chat tool that can also, read things and generate generative text and generative images is free in your Microsoft subscription. It's the
Okay. So we
it's a
just
little
don't.
confusing, yeah, because the names are similar, but yeah. So, but it has to be turned on, and by
Okay.
default, it's private. So that's why I recommend it for organizations getting started that are on Microsoft.
Okay.
The way to control that. Great question. Thank you. Melissa.
Hi, I put this in the chat, but I did it a little bit late. I know you mentioned copying a transcript or notes to create meeting minutes. And I've tried to do that before, but have found sometimes that I run into the word limit issue. Is that different depending on what version of Copilot I'm using?
My guess is it's not, though you do have an option in Copilot to use a larger window. Trying to see if I can bring it up. Or you can also attach it as a document.
Okay.
That's probably how I would go about trying that. So it may exceed the limit of what you can paste into a prompt, but you can have it as a document and say, review this document. This was a meeting, please analyze it and some, give me summary points and action items and things like that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Chris.
Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself, Chris. Like the camera is disabled, but mic's not. If not, I can help you with that.
Okay.
You
Can you
got
hear
it.
me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hi. My question is, can you upload a photo into Copilot and have Copilot either use that for a resource or edit it? Because I know there's certain images that, you cannot search for that are political. I work for a nonprofit that, anyway, just wondering, can you do that? Because sometimes it says you can, but I have not successfully been able to do that.
The way it functions, like if you have like an image, you can upload an image and like extract text from it, right? So it can pull, like I've given it screenshots and said, when I've been at a meeting, and extract the text from this, right? But I've not ever successfully had it say, make a version of this photograph. It's somehow not in how the generative AI processes that request.
Okay.
Images are interesting because it often will not, it will not make the same image twice, right?
No.
And yeah, so
If I can real quick,
yeah.
I would just I believe somebody else pinged in designer. I would just take a look at that, provided it's not, again, personally identifiable information. If you're just playing around with the AI to generate an image, you could take a look at Microsoft Designer.
Oh,
I could share information. It's the same thing like with, I'm not going to name the other major AI tool, but it's the same thing with their LLM model. You have to ask it like 50 different ways to like get you to generate the image correctly.
Right.
But it uses another underlying tool that you're really better off in that case using something else. So in the case of image designs, it's called Dolly. I don't know if anybody here
Let's
is
try
some.
Dolly. I have Dolly.
Yeah, so that's the underlying engine for that. You just need to move yourself over into specifically using that. And I'll drop my email in the thing, and anybody that's on this wants to email me questions about it, they're more than welcome to.
Oh, thank you. I've got so many I'm trying. So, we do a lot of things where we have to look for like, Ben Franklin or this or that, and there's just no way. So they block you right away. You used to have a Copilot. You used to show 4 blocks of images, and now you just show one with, there was just seemed to like last Copilot also, you could do a lot more things with changing things once you picked an image. But once you picked one, but they took that away, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean the model is evolving, right? So you think
Yeah.
about like these are transformers, like that's what GPT stands for, right? So it's pretty intensive, believe it or not, to generate an image, far more than text. So changes in the ability to do that within certain models are going to be inherent, especially if you are on, we'll just call it a fundamentally free, like or baked in version of the model. It's around tokenization. Like Kim's brought up a lot of the constructs around like how this works. And I don't want to get hashtagged for what was the hashtag?
jargon.
Jargon, but like just think about it in terms of like going between 87 fuel and 93, right? Like to get to 93, like it's more intensive, like in terms of compute, like just compute being like how hard like the machine works to generate that. So with a greater like cost, like in creating it, there's a greater cost that's shared, like is be
Okay.
how the way that I word it. So
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, and it does change. It does change. Oh, Peggy, yes, you do have to re-register. And there should be registration form. I'm sure it'll find its way in there. Any other questions? Anna? Anna, are you able to unmute? All right. Anna, I'll go to Lily and then hopefully Anna can unmute. Lily.
Hi, I just wanted to know about the amount for not only for nonprofits. I know you said there's a discount, but also for if we're a part of TechSoup, if you guys have a relationship with TechSoup, and what does the amount look like for nonprofits to them?
I defer to the TechSoup team on the pricing. Okay.
yeah,
It's in
they
there.
hit it. It's the same.
Okay.
This is I'm very excited that Microsoft has discounted this, but this did not initially roll out like with a discount available, and I'm actually very glad that they have since then. It doesn't necessarily fall in line with standard discounting, but the pricing is the same wherever you would go.
Okay, thank you.
The support, I'm gonna like toot our horns. I think we do a pretty good job of supporting it. So if you decide to go with us, I'd be happy to talk with you more about it.
You know,
Quick,
I
does
think
if Anna was
that.
still on mute,
Yeah.
if you're on a Windows machine, Anna, and you're listening, there's actually shortcut keys. If you're on a Windows machine, if you press Control, Shift, and the letter M simultaneously, it will unmute your microphone. If you're on a Mac, it is Command, Shift, and M.
I'm not sure. Any other questions? Copyright. That's a great question. Now here's the thing. They're going to be legally arguing copyright for a long time. There was a recent case, and I think it's been within the last month or so, where someone was able to copyright content they had created with AI, but it depends on the amount of uh, kind of like how much was human created versus AI, right? So if something just like popped out of the generative AI and then there was done, I think it would not be able to be copywritten. But if you in this particular case, and I would have to look it up, they were able to get copyright because they had done enough kind of modifications, changes. They had made it their own enough. But copyright is very tricky in the world of AI. I will tell you that. There'll be a lot of copyright lawyers that have jobs for a long time.
Yeah, one of the things about that too is like Creative Commons. I don't know enough about like copyright, obviously, but that's another thing to just keep in mind is that some of this or most of this stuff should be trained on the idea that whatever's created is built around stuff that is part of CC.
I want to hop on to Jeff Gallagher's point here. Does it differ if you fed in some copyrighted material? I mean, I have it interpret reports, right? So you could say that's copywritten, but do I use I think, and this is like an ethical question. This is why it's really good to have a policy at your organization, like of not using someone's like creative copyright material, to, write an essay and give it a style that is, say, one of my favorite writers or something like that. And as Kevin was saying earlier, the AI keeps evolving. So where you used to be able to get it to do that, in many systems now, you can't get it to do that. It'll say like, no, it's against my policy. But I think it's also good internally to have policies that say how we're going to use AI, like what's okay. Amanda.
Can you put the registration link in the chat for the next session?
Yeah, I'm dropping it back in there now. Oh, Aretha beat me to it. She's so fast.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So that's, it's tricky, and it could be a moving target. That was a big deal with the case that came out. Oh, okay, art created autonomously by AI cannot. Like some level of human authorship is required. Okay, anyone else? Nope. Let's see. If you are shy about speaking out in these kinds of forums, you can feel free to drop a question in the chat.
Yeah, I think we covered, you covered everything. I'm going through the chat history now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big the plus sign
Mhm.
to tag questions. So
I want to make sure I answer people's questions.
oh, somebody brought up the question around or pointed out the designer. So yes, designer is through a standard, we'll just call it like Windows Live, if you will, not to throw more jargon out there, but it's the standard Copilot interaction. Technically, the built-in version of Copilot chat for business or enterprise is called Visual Creator. It's actually an agent that's listed. It might not be added by default. If somebody is using it, and then again, that's a question that it is. I have access to Copilot, so I can be happy to put together some quick collateral on what it is, because there's a couple of pre-default agents like that can be added. And to Kim's point, Microsoft is expanding these at a pretty exponential clip. And then you actually can build your own too, which I have some limited experience with, but mostly around training like support agents. So
Denise, very cool. Yay. Jazz hands. Yeah, training agents. That's like a more advanced class. Kevin.
sorry, like
Okay,
as soon
Kevin
as I
was-
said that, I'm like, I bet Michael's gonna ask, and some of the other folks I saw that are dropping knowledge like panelists, which is great because it's trying to keep up with the chat is always a challenge. So, but it's good to know the upper limitations. You get the basic introduction. You get 3 flavors. The basic intro, the the not too hot, not too the Goldilocks, and then you get the scalding hot version. So
Industrial strength.
yeah, exactly. I like that one better. Yeah.
My thing is to experiment and have fun. It's funny because sometimes, when family and stuff are getting to know, my partner's getting to know AI and kind of like, well, can I ask it this? I'm like, I don't know, ask it and see what happens. You can't break anything by asking a question. Um, uh, um, can I take a picture of a handwritten list and then have Copilot automatically putting it into an Access database? Um, wow. That I defer to Kevin on agent questions. That would be interesting to see if I haven't. It probably could. It's translated some pretty grainy screenshots for me. And I once got a list, like a sign up list for something I was doing in my volunteer life, and some of the handwriting was like so messy I couldn't read it. And I think it read it better than me.
I've not tried to connect Access, but I have done Excel, and there's actually baked into Excel, either the desktop version supports both from a clipboard, like if you took a screenshot or uploading an image. It's powered by Copilot now, like fully. I can't recall what it was originally, what mechanism was converting the data, probably always Copilot. But just know that bringing those handwritten lists in there, I would just experiment with both because one endpoint is probably going to do it a little bit better than the other, especially with handwritten text because you're talking what's called optical character recognition or OCR. Anybody that's worked with the PDF should know what that is to some degree. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Access Excel. Yes. And then could be imported to Access. Bingo. Yeah. I just don't use Access like really at all. So, but that's Paul, I'm glad. Thanks for chiming in on that.
So remember, give us some work if you're coming back. You must have something, a standard operating procedure. That's always a good one to give the AI. Things like that. First draft of an RFP. Use it for that. Job descriptions. Does a very nice job with that. Yes, so Gloria, yes, in fact, there's the sign up form. The benefit of sending it to us through the form ahead of time is that it'll be ready. I will be here with another colleague, but we like to also be able to have some stuff ready to roll for people because it can take a little bit of time. We're fast on our feet, but it's but yeah, please do fill out the form and send something. And if you want us to like read a report or something, give us a link for it. The social media policy for your nonprofit, Sandra, I'd be more than happy to. Where's that form? Just ask for it. Here's the AI order form. It's in the Kevin very fancily dropped it in. Yeah, social media policy. There you go. Bingo. But agent, I'm not gonna have access to creating agents next time, but
If I can, stuff like that, like we could always bifurcate out those types of industrial strength ones. So those of you which I'm hoping that most, if not all of you, have subscriptions through us as a partner of record. This is stuff we talk about in our we stand up a private monthly session exclusively to our subscribers, where these are the things that we've covered. We We've moved across topics from billing, which was brought up a couple of times, which is very good. We've discussed basic administrative functions. And at the next session, we're going to be going into like some of the deeper embedded applications, which I'll probably be showing in real time, like how Copilot interfaces with some of those, just to put it in the recording. But this would be an excellent future session. So it's something that we extend to people that are subscribed through us. It's a value-added service we provide along with an invitation to our own community. We like to think it's like kind of like a souped up version of Microsoft Tech Community because it interfaces directly with the nonprofits and we're able to respond to questions usually the same day. So I'd be remiss if I didn't plug that, but yeah, that's something we rely on our subscribers, members to drive the conversations around this kind of stuff. So.
Well, we are at the top of the hour. I think this time was well spent. Kim, you are amazing. I'm so looking forward to the April 2nd event. We dropped the link a couple of times and you'll get it in your email. And feel free to send her the questions on the forum. Again, you'll get the recording tomorrow with the slides. And we're looking forward to seeing you on April 2nd. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.